Good morning and welcome to Strictly Business. I'm your host, Penny Font. This podcast features conversations with Louisiana's most influential CEOs, entrepreneurs, and community leaders with the goal of providing insights, ideas, and inspiration to help you and your business grow. Strictly Business is brought to you by the East Baton Rouge Parish Library and Neighbors Federal Credit Union. Without their support, this project would not be possible. Before we begin, here is a brief message from each of our sponsors.
The East Baton Rouge Parish Library believes that a thriving business community is good for us all. That's why we help entrepreneurs start businesses with tools like Gale Business Builder. Keep commerce rolling by providing access to computers, printers, and free Wi-Fi at 14 branch locations. Get a library card. Grow your business at ebrpl.com/business.
At Neighbors Federal Credit Union, we believe stronger schools build stronger communities. And with the generosity of our members and staff, we're making a difference. We've awarded 54 project grants, totaling over $220,000 for on-campus improvements. We've provided 99 scholarships worth nearly $300,000 to help dreams take flight. And through our mascot checking program, we've donated an additional $560,000 in unencumbered funds to local schools. Neighbors Federal Credit Union. We are neighbors helping neighbors.
Thank you all. We want to keep Strictly Business as interactive as possible. So for those joining us live, here's an icebreaker question for you. Submit your vote in the comments and the results will be posted at the end of the podcast. Today we're joined by Louisiana Economic Development Secretary Susan Bourgeois, who's helping to chart a new course for growth across the state. Under her leadership, LED is modernizing its strategy, rethinking how we attract new investment, support existing businesses, and prepare Louisiana for the next wave of opportunity. We'll talk about the state's evolving economic plan, the massive industrial and energy boom underway, the rise of tech and innovation, and the outlook for 2026 and beyond. Secretary Bourgeois, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start the conversation with the shift underway at LED. The agency has launched a new strategic plan with a goal of building, and I quote, the most robust, innovative, and dynamic economy in the Southeast. Very impressive. How would you describe Louisiana's new approach to economic development, and what prompted the need for change?
So, I think I'll start with the need for change part of that question first, because frankly, it is really the genesis as to why I accepted this role and the challenge that it is. And that is, I was feeling personally and professionally what so many of us in Louisiana were feeling, which is that Louisiana simply wasn't having the outcomes that I believe we deserved, but B, what our other southern peer states were experiencing, right? The outcomes did not fit our opportunity, our assets, and frankly, our people. And so the need for change was pretty evident. We've seen out-migration for the last 5 or 6 years. The Louisiana population has been shrinking for far longer than that. While, post-COVID, every other southern state grew in population, shrunk. There were just too many indicators that Louisiana was not experiencing the outcomes we deserve. So and if there's any one department, right, in state government that has the ability to change that, or the responsibility even to change that, clearly that fits pretty strongly where I sit now. So that's the why. So the what was also equally basic because when I came into the organization, both internally from a cultural perspective, but externally as we talked to our legislative partners, and it was clearly Governor Landry's vision as well, this department had to be remade to be a business-friendly, forward-facing, clear a path, clear the way, make it easy for business and industry to be successful in this state kind of place. We had developed a little bit of a reputation for being more of a regulatory body, which obviously we're not. So it was a lot of internal cultural shifts and it was a lot of policy changes. But at the end of the day, if I could boil it all down, we needed to act like and respond, right, more at the speed of business than at the speed of government.
Well, as we'll talk about this morning, we certainly have seen that change. You've talked about positioning Louisiana to, quote, win the future. What exactly does that mean in practical terms for businesses operating here today and those to come?
Yeah, so we have an equal balance really among three different verticals, if you will, as it relates to building a business ecosystem in Louisiana. But the ones that always get the headlines, right? That's the attracting. That's I like to call it chasing the big shiny things, right? That matters. Announcing a Meta, announcing a Hyundai, the LNG growth we're experiencing. All those things absolutely matter. But at the end of the day, an economy can't just be based on attracting new big shiny projects. Those three elements are first and foremost, yes, we need to attract those, and we're winning there. But the other piece, the second piece of that three-legged stool, which is equally as important, is that we have to make sure the existing Louisiana businesses, the ones who are already here, right, the ones who have already made the bet, who have already built the economy of the state, who have already invested in communities, that they get the same services and level of support and access to opportunity as the new shiny things do. So serving our existing Louisiana businesses, critical component to our work here. And then the third one, and this has a new focus for LEP under we call our innovation vertical. But what that really means is that we have to make sure Louisiana is a place where you can build companies as well, right? We want to build them here, we want to grow them here, we want to attract them here. So creating a startup culture, an innovation startup culture, so we can grow the next Meta instead of just attracting the next Meta. It's just as important to the department. So if we win on all three of those fronts, the Louisiana economy is just fundamentally different in the years to come.
So, when you look at the evolution of LED's mission, what are the biggest differences between how the agency operated, say, 5 years ago and how it's operating now?
Yeah, there are so many of them. A lot of them are kind of what I call inside baseball. Well, the first one is it's easy to reflect, and anybody who's engaged with our organization, I think would say this. We have shifted from being a no but to a yes and culture here, right? We have a team of about 200 people who work in and at LED, and we as an organization fundamentally have an attitude of yes, we can do that, and now let's figure out how to help you, right? And so culturally, we've had that shift. But practically, we've had a number of shifts. Last year, there was a bill that Senator Mizell authored for us, which became Act 590, and we called it Positioning Louisiana to Win, and it was the restructure of this department and how it functions. And we looked at best practices all over the country, many in the South, but really all over the country, and we changed the department to reflect some of those best practices, not the least of which is that we have a new structure around a private sector board. It's called our Louisiana Economic Development Partnership Board. And while, since we are a state agency, they are not a government board, they are, in fact, our guiding vision and direction givers. And they're the ones who said, you have to go get a strategic plan. And of course, we knew this department has been operating under an 18-year-old strategic plan, but when you have a group of 14 or 15 CEOs from all over the state, from all private sector leaders, all people who have lead capable, all people who have built organizations and successful businesses here, then they're the ones helping guide your work. You are more responsive to and reflective of the private sector. And so that is a huge shift for us, that private sector focus. And then an asterisk to that piece, which is serving us very well, is that we have a full engagement strategy now around engaging partners. I started off calling the whole Louisiana approach, a whole government approach, but truth be told, this is not enough Louisiana. The private sector, our other NGO, nonprofit partners, our regional economic development organizations, our trade associations, the media. If you look at all those elements, we now have the entire department called engagement here at LED. And that department's role is to engage other Louisianians in their expertise and in their field of work to help move the agenda of the Louisiana opportunity. That's a tremendous difference for this department as well. So, and I think the outcomes are sort of bare enough and it's working. I am a big fan of disruptive innovation. I think you make change when it's necessary, and you change path or you change process. But you also have to continually look at it and make sure the outcomes are what you want and tweak where you need to. But I will say, I think the results are bearing out, not just in the numbers. And I'm sure kind of at some point in this conversation, I'm going to get to talk about the numbers. But more importantly, in the reputation, in the credibility, in the pride that people are now taking, and the success that we are feeling. So I think the results of the restructuring showed.
I love that level of collaboration. LED recently announced several new initiatives designed to help existing Louisiana businesses grow and compete. Why was that such an important priority for you, and how do you measure success for these programs?
So again, it goes back to when Governor Landry was talking to me about taking this opportunity that we both sort of mind melded, if you will, around that element that economic development cannot just be based on attracting new outside companies to come here. That there has to be an aggressive focus on existing Louisiana businesses. So that was always the philosophical position that the governor and I staked. But the irony is the timing. So I accepted the role. He announced my appointment, and about half an hour after that announcement is when I had my first meeting about Meta. And so even though the intentionality was to immediately focus on existing Louisiana businesses, the irony is we really spent our first 8 or 9 months restructuring the department internally and from a statutory perspective, behind the scenes, because it obviously wasn't public at the time, trying to land the biggest AI data center in the world, and negotiating with our friends in South Korea in a time zone 16 hours difference from here for the Korea deal, for the Hyundai deal rather. So the irony is we really spent the first 10 months doing outwardly looking like we were doing the things we said we weren't going to do. But in fact, what it allowed us to do is now launch a really aggressive suite of initiatives around existing Louisiana businesses. So first and foremost is that whole of government approach to economic development. The governor issued an executive order that basically directed his entire cabinet to do whatever it takes to make businesses succeed in Louisiana. Second piece that we did was we launched our Driving Louisiana Opportunity Tour. We have a list, if you will, of companies all over the state that fit a little bit of a formula that we call our driver companies. They are ones that have both for payroll, number of jobs, community impact. They are identified as driver companies in Louisiana. We drive the Louisiana economy. So we launched an incredibly impressive goal to visit 800 Louisiana driver companies in 1 year. We're calling that our Driving Louisiana Opportunity campaign. And I am doing a number of those visits, but I will tell you it's a number much smaller than 800 because our really strong team is doing a great deal of those. And we're doing them in partnership with our regional economic development organizations. We don't go into LED. Someone from Baton Rouge doesn't walk into a business in Natchitoches, Louisiana, without our regional partner by our side walking into this, or with an industry partner. So the Driving Louisiana Opportunity Tour is the second one. The third one, Penny, this was sort of a duh moment for me. I've had a lot of this job in the last 21 months now, but when we were finalizing the Meta deal, the good people from Meta said, look, when we're bringing in some contractors, in fact, the 3 primes on that job in Richland Parish are huge construction companies. The primes themselves are not from Louisiana, but the Meta principals came to us and said, it's really important to us that we use Louisiana talent, Louisiana vendors, Louisiana suppliers. Where can we get that list? And yeah, it's a great question. Let me go ask my team, right? Because I was still pretty new at the time. Only to have my team look at me and say, that doesn't exist. Then I thought, what do you mean it doesn't exist? Well, surely the Secretary of State has a list that way. And after going down that rabbit hole, what we discovered is there is, in fact, no one list. right? There's a lot of public lists. It's all different kinds of companies, all different kinds of corporations, all different kinds of tax ID numbers, but that list still exists. So our department got about the work very quickly, about the research of finding out how do we get that, how do we create that list? And so about 2 months ago now, we launched, it's called sourcelouisiana.com. But what we did was we bought a platform that goes out and scrubs every public list there is, right? All those other lists I just described to you. And it created a database of about 80,000 Louisiana businesses. That's the good news. That is the very good. The not as good news is that that data is only as good as the public list it just got scrubbed from. And so now there's a real responsibility on LED's part, on our regional partners' part, on everyone in the state's part, for Louisiana businesses to go in and verify their information. In fact, I spot checked my one test. I spot checked my husband's company. It was in the list. The address was wrong. It was an old address. It was an address from about 6 years ago. And what they did, the service they provided, was also not correct. So we just are encouraging businesses all over Louisiana to take advantage of this opportunity for us to create a healthy, dynamic, clean, verified list. Go in, update that data. So we created that. And then the great thing about that is not just do Louisiana businesses get to now be on that list for anyone to use, but now we can give the big projects that we're landing the code, if you will, because there is a username, or we can say, here it is. Now go find the concrete supplier from Louisiana, right? Or the caterer from Louisiana to provide food on site, or the asphalt layer, or you name it. So we are doing that as well. And again, it's just, there's just so much work to be done, but those are the three most recent initiatives. And we just continue to make a much more robust, programmatic list around things we can do for small, mid-sized, and large businesses in Louisiana.
That can have so much impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Louisiana competes with neighboring states for major investments, as we know. So talk to us about what's setting us apart right now, and where do we still need to sharpen our competitive edge?
Yeah, so I would say if there was one defining difference, one singular defining difference on what's setting us apart, it goes back to a line I actually read in the Wall Street Journal about a week after taking this job, and I credit the journal all the time for it. It's not mine, but it was a quote that said, "Capital flows where it streams the best." And that was, in fact, that was my first dumb moment, right? Remember I said I've had a lot of dumb moments in this job. My first moment was that was the best simple mantra, even for what I felt like we as a department and we as a state needed to be about. And so if you believe that capital flows where it's treated the best, which fundamentally, the more we act that way, the more we behave that way, the more it's working. And I will say that the most reassuring part of that is not just the wins, not just the numbers, those matter, but in every single large announcement we've had, the principals from the company themselves have been the ones that have said that. They have said, we've done business all over the country, we've done all business all over the world in many respects. And the ease of use, the ease of doing this project in Louisiana is unlike anywhere we've seen. That is an incredible competitive advantage. And the great thing about it is I can say it all along, but it sounds a little self-serving when I'm trying to attract or grow a company here if I'm the one saying it. But we have a quote bank, right? We have a quote bank from Meta. We have a quote bank from Woodside. We have a quote bank, right, from Hyundai. The amount of people who are saying that this Louisiana right now, the way the governor's administration, the legislature, local governments are working together and creating an ease of use, is what we call it, right? Unlike anywhere else. So we're going to keep riding that because it's working.
That's amazing. So this new direction comes at a time when Louisiana's economy is expanding faster than it has in years. The state is attracting record levels of industrial and energy investment, and with it, new opportunities and challenges. Louisiana is really experiencing one of its most active periods of industrial growth in decades. So, how will this wave of investment transform the state's economy and the opportunities available here?
Yeah, I think, if you boil down the way you just reflected it, and it was great, by the way, I might actually steal that one too. But if you boil all that down into, at the end of the day, everything you just said means more and better jobs for the people of Louisiana. The opportunity for citizens of Louisiana, existing ones who maybe are from here who we want to come home, and others who we want to move here, right? And the opportunity for them to have a good job, get paid a good wage, right? To provide for themselves and their families the life that they choose. That's the definition of our success. That's the definition of prosperity. That is ultimately what we want. And so when you look at the way you just described it, the immense opportunity and actual implementation of this both industrial boom that we're seeing, this innovation boom I believe we're seeing, all of those things at the end of the day, with more jobs and more money. And more jobs and more money mean the citizens of Louisiana, existing and new, and in return, get to live the life they want in a place they love. I mean, there's no question how much, our culture and our richness and authenticity as a place is that right? That's unarguable. You lump on opportunity for wage growth and prosperity and that's our success. And at least that's what we all want. I think that will be the outcome of what we're seeing. And we'll see it in every part of the state. We're not picking the winners and losers based on geography or based on sector. It's in every sector, it's in every region.
Absolutely. So, with billions of dollars in new projects from LNG and hydrogen to AI and data infrastructure, what are the most significant challenges to sustaining this growth?
Well, it's funny, all those subject matters you just said, they all have one common thread. And I would argue this is the single common thread of the future global economy here, right? And that's energy, and energy coupled with power. Same thing, different, right? Nuances at both the same thing. Everything you just said, really based on energy. And so that's a double-edged sword for us. But really opportunities and challenges coupled. Frankly, I think it's why Louisiana's winning. We have access to abundant energy. We have expertise in all things energy, right? And we have innovation that can take the things we used to do, right, and kind of bolt on the new. So on the good side of that, the reality is that if energy and power are the absolute of the global economy, no state is better positioned than Louisiana to win that, right? Now, on the exact same coin, the reality is, and it's everyone's reality, and the governor and the Public Service Commission and the legislature pay very close attention to it, is making sure at the end of the day that growth, that production, how we're doing it is safe from an environmental perspective, and it's safe from a consumer protection perspective, right? That Louisiana citizens have the right, and I believe they are absolutely being served this way, to know that as we grow, and we do use energy as our power, lots of puns included in all that, right? That we also use it responsibly, and we use it to impact the world in a good way and impact Louisiana in a good way, and just pay attention to and stay on top of that challenge. Other states went too far, too fast, and are having the results that they didn't expect. We have the luxury of learning from them and staying ahead.
That's good to hear. With so many major projects breaking ground, how is LED working to ensure that Louisiana has the skilled workforce and the training systems needed to meet the long-term demand? I know this has been a focus of yours.
Yeah, so it's first of all, it's a focus of mine because I have the sheer luxury of knowing that there's a really deep bench in Louisiana as it relates to people and colleagues I have that are living this every day, right? So when you look at the whole um, political and private sector infrastructure around workforce, be it our K-12 system, right? Be it our 2-year institutions through LTTCS, our 4-year institutions. Then the Louisiana used to be Workforce Commission, now Louisiana Works, just restructured and rebranded. To our industry partners who have trade programs, I mean that system is robust, and so I get to just sort of be the outsider on the inside of that says, okay, guys, here's the next project that's coming. Here's the kinds of skill trades that they will need, and that team is working very much as a team, and is very aware of the opportunities and the challenges that come with, right, this workforce speaks with all the success we have. So, I really do have the very enviable position, I feel like, of working with those really highly qualified folks, but also knowing that that's their world and they know it well, and that they all play a different but related role. And so to watch the coordination there makes me feel good about state government too, right? It hasn't always existed where those entities I just described to you are sitting around the same table all the time. So the workforce piece, it's real, and that's real in every state. A workforce challenge is not unique to Louisiana. But I think that every system I just described is not only keenly aware of it, but they're behaving in a nimble way we've never behaved in before to be able to react to. Because we have long-term systemic issues that need to be addressed, clearly. And I think Secretary Shannon is doing a remarkable job restructuring the department and restructuring the system that 6 to 10 years from now will transform that piece. And I think everybody's also keenly aware that 2 years from now, we're going to need a lot of electricians, for example, right? And so everyone has a role to play in all that. And so, be it any one of those sort of rungs on the ladder I just described, everyone's paying attention to, okay, so then what's coming? What do we have going on? What do we need now? What do we need 2 years from now? And then just for Louisiana, what do we need long term? So, and again, I know I sound like I'm singing a lot of kumbaya, but I've been in and out of Louisiana government and politics for, frankly, more years than I would like to share, but it has never worked this collaboratively and coordinated, and that's not just within one administration, that's amongst many separate bodies. So great enthusiasm there, optimism about how it's working.
Absolutely. Amid this industrial boom, Louisiana's economy, as we're seeing, is also evolving with technology, digital infrastructure, and entrepreneurship playing a growing role in the state's future. The tech sector in Louisiana is really gaining traction with obviously the major projects like Meta's center. That's putting the state on the map in new ways. So, how does a project like Meta reshape perceptions of Louisiana, both within the state, because we know we have an issue there, but also nationally as a place for innovation and high-tech investment?
Right. Yeah, that is a great both observation and question. And we knew early on with the Meta deal that we didn't want to just use that announcement and the significance of that choice by that global company to be about a building, or a series of buildings. Frankly, we knew that if Louisiana was really going to have a long-term play in this space beyond just the physical structure around AI computing, that no other state owns AI technology. If you ask anybody right now, what state's really the hub for or the owner of all things future-leaning AI? No one state owns that yet. And we're not just giving that up by default, right? Louisiana is making a really significant run at our ability to lead in the technology space because we have historically. It just isn't a story we've told very well. But the thing that positions, we think, and we are positioning the department to be able to support this, where we think our secret sauce is, and gosh, I guess I shouldn't say our secret sauce on this podcast, but I will, is that Louisiana in itself, particularly as it relates to things like AI and emerging technologies, it's like we're a living lab, right? So if AI is solving for things like healthcare challenges, right, good or bad, Louisiana has a very large Medicaid population. We have a very right. We have the ability to use data and our clients as it relates to the state's population to try to drive some outcomes in this space. Not to mention great private sector partners, both from research institutions and healthcare delivery services. Now take that to disaster recovery, right? Now take that to trade and logistics and how much we move through our river, our ports, our Class A railroads, the number of interstates. So if you just look at the challenges in many respects that Louisiana has either faced or adapted to or just simply collected data on, we're a lab for an immense amount of AI rollout at the application level. And that's an incredible opportunity. And we're having those conversations, frankly, all over the country, not just all over Louisiana. And so we as a department have a really keen eye on that because everything right now in innovation with tech has some AI component to it. I went, what I love about it is taking those historic legacy industries in Louisiana and overlaying that technology on it. I'll give you one great example. On our Driving Louisiana Opportunity Tour, I was telling you about I was up in North Louisiana and went to visit and tour a tremendous, a large, I can't remember, forgive me, it's either the largest in the South, it might be the largest in the country, sawmill, right? Timber, traditional Louisiana industry. And so maybe it was a very poor assumption on my part, but I assumed I was just going to tour a regular sawmill, right? Well, that regular sawmill, if you will, brings in logs, full logs, bark and all, runs them through a scanner, which is programmed by AI. That belt then turns that log to position that tree. I mean, it's a giant log, right? It's the size of a tree with no limbs. To turn it on the belt, to position it, to cut it for the most use of the wood with the least amount of waste. The belt moves it, and by the time it gets to the saw, the scanner has fed it into the AI has positioned it to the saw, and the log is cut. So, and I could give you example after example after example of where we're taking a traditional Louisiana industry, legacy industry like that we're good at it, our workforce today, our history of them. And technology is being overlaid on it, and in this case, and in many AI very specifically, and creating efficiencies, creating better products, creating less waste, creating better processes. And so we have that ability in this state because tremendous tax incentive around all things technology and digital media. And so that ecosystem exists here, and people are not just taking notice, but I think they're taking advantage of it as well.
That's such a great example. As you look ahead to 2026 and beyond, what are the top priorities for LED to come, and what will success look like when we look back 5 years or a decade from now?
Yeah, so the priorities, one of the things that I've spent the last 17 years running a community foundation, and from that experience, it's really important. Two things are really important to me. One is transparency, and the other is accountability, right? I felt like when I was dealing with other people's money, right? I had the luxury of doing philanthropic work with other people's money. Transparency and accountability were pretty fundamental to that work. And so I carried that into this department. And so when we did our new strategic plan, which we released about 6 months ago now, we then created what we call our 9 by 90 work plan. So LED will be 90 years old next year. And so while I love a good strategic plan, I'm a huge fan. I think it's more vision setting and it's guiding. it was important to me that we turn that into a work plan that had tangible, documented, right, initiatives and KPIs. So we call that our 9 by 90. We identified 9 elements of that plan with very specific programs and initiatives under them, all achievable, all aspirational, by the way, but achievable by the end of next year, hence 9 by 90, right? So that's why we called it that. But the other important piece of that is, let's go back to the transparency and accountability. I presented it to our LEDP, that private sector board I told you about, told them what our plan was, a public meeting. They gave us some feedback. We adopted it, and now we report on it at every meeting. And it is meaty, it is detailed, it is aggressive, and as I tell people in every speech, and you, the general public, LEVP, citizens of Louisiana, taxpayers, should hold us accountable to accomplish. And we're going to. And I'm 100% confident of that. We will, by the end of next calendar year, so 9 by 90, accomplish every single thing that's in that plan. And then we'll do more, right? It's not like we're not done, not going home, I don't think, at least at that point. But to your point is, what does it mean? What are the results, right? What does that mean for the people of Louisiana? And I'm just going to tell you, every single thing we do goes back to the ultimate goal of what I said, is creating prosperity for the people of the state, right? Higher wages, more money in your pocket, better jobs, conception of better opportunity, and the reality of better opportunity, right? And it's anchored on 5 principles throughout the plan, but it's things like ever-growing wages, right? We will measure that. We are measuring that monthly here. We built an incentive package around wage growth, so ever-growing wages. Continually positioning Louisiana to win is one of those pillars, and that to me means public policy, competitiveness, all of that. So are we continuing to win? That's immeasurable. Creating thriving regions. Look, at the end of the day, I can do this job all day long, but there's no quality of place, right? If there's no there, it makes it harder for us to do this job. And so making sure that we have thriving regions throughout the state that have a quality of place, and that's all different and unique, and that's what's so cool about Louisiana. So creating thriving regions, that's measurable. Using our legacy industries, right? Using innovation and technology to make sure our legacy industries lead in the future as they have in the past, right? I mean, to think about, as I said, energy, shipbuilding, agriculture, all those things that Louisiana is just known for and have been just leaders in historically. Positioning those industries to bolt on innovation and technology and make sure we lead in the future. And then the last piece of that is making sure Louisiana companies have the global impact. And that sounds sort of pie in the sky, but that's real. And it's actually so much easier done than people think it is. Between our access, the river, our intellectual capital, and so we're measuring all those things. And so at the end of the day, higher wages, it's more money in people's pocket, more jobs, better jobs, right? But it also is those 5 pillars which we anchor all our work on.
With lots of accountability there.
Exactly.
Okay, final question. Louisiana's business landscape is evolving quickly. What advice would you give to company leaders who want to make sure that they align their own strategies with where the state is headed?
Yeah, I think, that is a great question. I think if you refer back to sort of what I said about that ease of use, if we're doing that and we're doing that right, the answer to your question becomes almost natural, right? It becomes relational. You know, Louisiana, as people, we are relational by nature, right? And so if we as a government and as a place are creating that ease of use, and putting out there, again, the strategic plan, the legislative alignment with the strategic plan. So policies are following a plan, are following outcomes. And again, and it's transparent. And so companies all over the world can look and see where's Louisiana going, what are its priority sectors, what are the goals it's trying to implement, all that. There are no secrets. You know, transparency, I think there's been a long-held belief and almost maybe behavior out of our department that all things economic development had to be done in secret and shrouded. And I walked in day one and said, that's absurd. That's absolutely absurd. Of course, we have NDAs and we'll talk about the details of specific deals while we're in the midst of it. But that's the only thing we don't talk about around here. And so I think just changing that narrative and making sure that global companies and Louisiana companies all know that Louisiana is not only open for business, we are, refer back to this 5 pillars. We're positioning to win, to create a thriving state. And I think when you do that with an openness and an authenticity and a transparency, the natural result of that is going to be the answer to your question. There will be a lot.
Awesome. Secretary Bourgeois, thank you so much for your time and insight today. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kenny. I enjoyed it.
And thanks also to our viewers for tuning in, as well as our sponsors, Neighbors Federal Credit Union and the East Baton Rouge Parish Library, for making this experience possible. Please join us for the Season 3 premiere of Strictly Business on January 21st, 2026. Until then, on behalf of our show's director, Tim Coles, and me, happy holidays and happy new year. We'll see you right back here in 2026.